Hey guys, Travis here, and in all the years that I've been a fan of professional wrestling, the one thing that's always been consistent about professional wrestling, or whether it was MMA or boxing, the one thing that everybody always wanted to have, and nobody, unless you were absolutely special, could be able to get, was championship belts. Not trophies, not medals, it was always the championship belts. And throughout the history of professional wrestling, there have been some doozy bad ones, but there have been some beautiful ones. And throughout the YouTube, I've seen many people posting their top 10 most favorite championship belt designs. Some of them are fairly new, some of them quite old. But 1 to 10 top championship belt designs that I've always appreciated and always loved. I've ever seen make it to a top 10 list. Some of you probably don't even know that these belts even existed. So right now I'm going to give you my top 10 championship belt designs. Coming in at number 10 has got to be the classic WWF Tag Team Championship titles. You know what? Nowadays, you look at the championship title picture, especially in the WWE, and it is a joke. You've had pennies turned to dimes as championship belt designs. After the original, actually, this was not actually even the original WWF Tag Team Championships. The side plates turned into a little bit more modern to actually go with the front center plate. But formerly, the side plates were square, and it didn't look really good at all until they actually updated it a little more. These tag team championships were held by such greats as Demolition, the Colossal Connection, the Hart Foundation, uh, Strike Force, the British Bulldogs, and some of the other great legendary tag teams in the history of professional wrestling. And why is this one my top 10? This is the one I grew up watching. This is the one that I really liked. I always liked the shininess of the belt. I've always liked the design of the belt. The size of it has always been really good compared to the WCW Tag Team Championships, which is something I never really managed to truly appreciate or enjoy. If I had to put those two up against any times, I would always have to put the WWF Tag Team Championships on the line. And obviously, gold when it comes to the modern day WWE Tag Team Championships, whether it be the dime or the penny, gold always beats the silver and the bronze. Coming in at number 9 is the late 80s, 90s WWF Intercontinental Championship belt. The IC title is probably one of the most iconic belts in the world. Created by Pat Patterson back in the late 70s, it really just evolved into something that a lot of people thought that was just going to be a one-off, but it turned out to be probably one of the most prestigious titles for a long time, held by the likes of obviously Pat Patterson, Shawn Michaels, Don Morocco, Bret the Hitman Hart, Big Daddy Cool Diesel, Razor Ramon, you name it. The Who's Who has had the Intercontinental title and used that to go from their career from here to here. The IC title design is actually pretty basic in its design, but it's probably one of the most beautiful. After, in the late 90s, around 1998, the Intercontinental title switched from the current design to the oval design, and then it went on to becoming something that is absolutely no, the modern day Intercontinental title obviously looks hideous. But this is probably one of the when people think of the Intercontinental title, this is the same title on the edge of the WCW US title, only this title is far more beautiful as far as expected. The thing I never liked about the WCW titles was that the side plates, they only had one on each side. The WWF titles always had two on each side. And I've always, obviously, being a Canadian, the Intercontinental title meant more to me than the US title. But this had to be probably one of the most beautiful titles ever. The big globe in the middle, just the layers of it, it definitely goes down in history as definitely one of my favorites. Sorry about that. Number 8 comes in at the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. There's been two versions of the AWA World title that have been pretty much well known, but to every single AWA fan. One is this one, and the other one is the one that Stan Hansen famously ran over with his truck after they told him to give up the belt, otherwise we're going to take legal action against you. That one I never really was a big fan of. To me, it looked like just a big old plate with just random text that you get on Microsoft Word and you just put AWA World Title under. This one here just seems like it's a bit more prestigious. The design of it is a little bit more sharp. It's a little bit more fancy. It actually looks just like a championship belt should. And it looks like something that a combination of professional wrestling should have, and it looks like a combination of something that Olympic amateur catch wrestling should have too. It's a combination of a modern day type of championship and a trophy belt. And I never was a big fan of the trophy belt designs because I felt that they were just too old. Obviously, when it comes down to really old belts, the AWA was actually one of the first ones to actually go into modern day styles of belts, which means bigger, a little bit more flashy, a little bit more prestigious looking. I mean, they went completely different than what the NWA World Championship belt looked like at the time. And it wasn't, I'm not talking about the big globe one. I'm talking about the one that the likes of Lou Thesz had. Lou Thesz had a championship belt that actually, you know, it didn't look very prestigious at all. And of course, it was a part of the times. Championship belts back then were not a big thing. They were still using trophies and medals at the time. But this is the first one that the AWA had that really just showed the advancement of what it means to be a champion. Verne Gagne created this belt himself. He was the first champion of the AWA, and it just advanced into something that was even better than what championship belts were before. Number 7 is barely anybody ever remembers, including me, because I was never around when it was going to go. But at the same time, looking at this belt is probably one of the most beautiful belt designs that has ever been created. This is the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, the WWF Junior Heavyweight Championship belt, famously held by Japanese superstar Tatsumi Fujinami. This was before the Cruiserweight era of WCW. This was before the Cruiserweight era of the WWE or the X division of TNA. Tatsumi Fujinami and the light heavyweight and the junior heavyweight division were probably the first high flyers that were in North American professional wrestling. Normally, if you wanted to see that style of professional wrestling, you either had to go to Calgary, you had to go to Mexico to see the Luchadors, or you had to go to Japan. Tatsumi Fujinami was the first guy to bring it over here and nicknamed the Dragon. And he wasn't the first Japanese professional wrestler ever to come to North America, but he definitely was one of the first ones to show the high-flying style. Where Antonio Inoki showed the martial arts style, Tatsumi Fujinami was the first one to show some of the high-flying moves. And the WWF at the time needed a belt to actually show that. And to me, this is actually a more beautiful belt, better looking belt design than they had for the World Heavyweight Championship. If you look at it, everything about this belt, it's not the biggest one, but at the same time, it is absolutely gorgeous. You can see the 2 rubies on it, the 2 eagles, the leather backing. It's just one of the most, probably the nicest looking title belts that ever was created. And it's just sad that the junior heavyweight division didn't last very long. But at the same time, this was around the time when Vince McMahon Sr. was on his way out and Vince Jr. was on his way back in. And Vince Jr. just loved the big heavyweight guys like Andre, like Hogan, like Stud. So obviously the belt didn't last very, very long. But this is actually one of the most beautiful belts that you could ever see. And if there's ever a replica out there that's actually half decent looking, I suggest getting it for your collection because this is just a gorgeous looking title. And this is my number 7. Number 6 is the ECW World Heavyweight Championship in the mid-90s. This title is actually probably one of the nicest ECW's ever had. This is around the time when ECW was transitioning from Eastern Championship Wrestling to Extreme Championship Wrestling. The original ECW belt and the original ECW television and tag belts by that time were old and falling to pieces. And apparently the original ECW world title was in the Team Taz dojo that got stolen by Mikey Whipwreck, and nobody's ever seen it since. The ECW world title, if you've seen this one, is actually really beautiful. It's got the ECW barbed wire logo, and it's not like the ECW World Heavyweight title that was in the late 90s and the early 2000s where it was all scratched up and everything else like that. To me, this is actually a legitimate title. I think the ECW World title in the later years that it was in business, it was a unique looking belt. I'll give it that. But too many other professional wrestling organizations that were hardcore like XPW, MLW, and CZW were trying way too hard to mimic it, and it just was terrible. But this one really takes the cake when it comes to ECW's World Heavyweight Championship. The globe, the gold, the pylons, the the logo and the side plates on it. It was just perfect for the time, and why they changed it, I don't really know, but it was probably a great. It definitely looked good on Terry Funk after when Terry Funk won it in the first ever ECW pay per view back in 1997, and this one's going to be my number six. Number five is the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, the last version of it. You know what? Japan never really had a history of making very lovely looking belt designs. The IWGP, or New Japan Pro Wrestling, has made some pretty doozy, has made some pretty interesting looking belts in time. But normally Japan has been based on prestige of belts instead of what they look like. The original IWGP World Heavyweight Championship and the IWGP Tag Team and the Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championships I've seen in America several different times when it comes to TNA and some of the other tag teams and world champions that they've had, including Fujinami when he had the first version of the World Heavyweight Championship along with the big gold belt. And it looked like a toy next to the other one. Same thing with the IWGP Junior and the World Tag Team Championship belts. It just didn't look right at all. This version of the IWGP World Championship, the New Japan Pro Wrestling World Championship, as I like to call it, I don't know. I still don't know to this day why they call it the International Wrestling Grand Prix. It just doesn't, it sounds more like a tournament or another promotion instead of New Japan. But this belt here is probably the prized possession that they've ever made. Totally different and totally improved on what they had on the version before this, and totally different and totally improvement on what they have now, which is a combination of a butterfly and Cody Rhodes's American Nightmare family logo, which I absolutely despise. This belt right here really has it all. It has the New Japan Pro Wrestling Lion logo on the top. It has IWGP right there. The design of it is just absolutely gorgeous. On the side plates, it has all the names of the history of, just like a trophy should, has all the nameplates of every single former IWGP World Champion before it. And really is just a big belt. It's a beautiful belt, and really it just catches the eye once anybody ever sees it. And it definitely is one of my favorites. This is number five. Number four is the WWE European Championship, which is now defunct, which I really didn't like because I thought that this is probably one of the nicest belts that they've ever had. To me, really, a lot of people, including myself, think that this should have been the replacement of the Intercontinental Championship, because you have the World Championship, and what is Intercontinental? It means world. To me, this is the European Championship. Like, whether WCW had the United States Championship, WWE could have had the European Championship, which really, at the time, they actually had some pretty decent European wrestlers over there. The first ever European champion was declared in Europe, actually in Germany, I think it was, where they absolutely had a tremendous, tremendous match between the late great British Bulldog and the late great Owen Hart, where they absolutely had a phenomenal match. And of course, they were brother-in-laws and family, so they absolutely had a tremendous connection and a tremendous chemistry in the ring. Excuse me. And of course, the British Bulldog came out that day as the European champion. It's been held by William Regal and some of the other greats in the professional wrestling world. The design of it is actually just very, very colorful. It has the globe in the middle, the big red European words, and every flag of every European country that is in the European Union. The side plates are absolutely gorgeous as well. There were two versions of this belt. There was the black strap and the green strap. I actually think the green strap is a better version of it, but the European title is something that should have been brought back a long time ago, and but it got unified with the Intercontinental title. So this one's my number four. Number three is the Unified World Heavyweight Championship belt. This belt is absolutely gorgeous, and it represents everything that they were trying to do at the time. For those of you who don't know the background of this belt was created after the unification of the World Class Championship belt, WCCW World Heavyweight title, and the AWA World Heavyweight title, along with the CWA World Heavyweight title. The reason why this came about is because all the companies that were not the WWF at the late 80s, that were territories at the time, including the CWA, the World Class, and the AWA, all three were all sinking ships during the juggernaut that was Vince McMahon coming back with the new World Wrestling Federation. So they all decided to buddy up and create what was called a Super Clash. And really, it was a great idea on paper, but it never worked out. It never worked out to fight up against Vince because Verne Gagne, Fritz von Erich, Jerry Jarrett, the three of them couldn't order a cup of coffee together in order to take it to Vince McMahon, along with the Crockett's and other promotions. This belt was created after the match between Kerry Von Erich, who was the world-class champion, and Jerry the King Lawler, who at that time was the AWA and the CWA world champion. This was at Superclass 3, I think it was, where Jerry the King Lawler ended up beating Kerry Von Erich for the unified title. But obviously, carrying around two belts wasn't exactly ideal, so they created this championship right here, and it was absolutely just a beautiful championship to look at. But it never lasted ever very long. At the time, the World Class Championship belt was actually brought back to Kerry Von Erich and the WCCW for the very few years that they had remaining, which wasn't very long at all after at that point. And the AWA title actually was remaining with Jerry the King Lawler along with the unified title, and he said that he's not going to give it back to Verne Gagne, the AWA, until he's gotten paid. And this is almost over 30 years, and Jerry Lawler still hasn't been paid for the Super Clash that he fought Kerry Von Erich for that title. So obviously, this is going to be my number 3. This is just a beautiful, beautiful belt to look at, and it represents everything that should have been, that could have been, but unfortunately, it just didn't happen. And number 2, of course, we're talking about the granddaddy of them all. This isn't a big gold belt. This isn't the NWA Globe. This isn't the IWGP. This is the Winged Eagle belt, the godfather, the grandfather of them all, in my opinion. When you think World Heavyweight Champion, to me, some people think of the big gold, some people think of the NWA. This is what it means to me. This is the belt that I grew up watching. This is the belt I grew up loving. This is the belt I grew up wanting. This belt has lasted since WrestleMania 4. The very first holder was the Macho Man Randy Savage, and it lasted all the way to WrestleMania 4, all the way to WrestleMania 8, or WrestleMania 14 in 1998, where the last holder was Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then they switched it to the Big Eagle, and then it just went downhill from there. This is the belt, the side plates, the Winged Eagle, the globe, the text on it, everything about it just screams beautiful world championship belt. Obviously, before that, there was a different title. It was a smaller one that Hogan had, and then another title was made for Andre if he was going to win the World Heavyweight Championship belt. To me, those two, along with the Winged Eagle and the NWA Globe, are in my honorable mentions, but this one right here, this is number 2 for me. Now, I know what you're thinking. If this is number 2, if you love this belt so much, what belt design could possibly top this one? Well, just stay there, and I'll tell you. And number 1, obviously, since I'm wearing the shirt, number 1 is the World Class Championship Wrestling Heavyweight Championship of the world. This belt, to me, is the greatest championship belt design in the history of championship belts. Even better than the Winged Eagle. And this is one that a lot of people don't really know unless you're from Texas. You follow the Von Erichs, you follow WCCW. But this belt, to me, just screams out World Heavyweight Championship belt. After WCCW decided to leave the NWA banner and go off on their own to become the World Class Championship Wrestling Association, they needed new championship belts. They created new tag team championship belts, weren't exactly the nicest looking ones. They actually looked like rectangular bricks. They had the junior heavyweight championship belt that they had, which actually was a little bit nice, but compared to others, it wasn't exactly the best. The Texas Heavyweight Championship belt was actually a really nice looking belt, but this one right here, as you can see with the globe, the design of the leather strapping, the side plates, everything about this belt was just gorgeous. It was probably the most well thought after belt design. And I don't know who designed the belt, whether it was Fritz, Dave, Reg Park, or whoever it was that created the belt. I don't know. But this is definitely the creme de la creme for me when it comes to whoever the creme de la creme of World Championship belt designs to me. Even better than the Winged Eagle. It's bigger than the Winged Eagle. It looks nicer than the Winged Eagle. It's been held by Kerry Von Erich, by Kevin Von Erich, by Chris Adams, by Iceman King Parsons. It's been held by some of the greatest legends in world-class championship wrestling history. And unfortunately, after the belt didn't last that long, it lasted a few years while WCCW was still around, until Fritz ended up selling the company, and then the company turned into the USWA. So, you know what? I wish to God that, David Von Erich would have had the chance to hold this title, because I think it would have looked great for him. I wish a lot of things happened in world class would have been differently. But to me, this right here, this is my favorite World Heavyweight Championship belt design. This is my favorite belt design in general. So there you have it. That's my top 10 favorite belt designs. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, give me a subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you all on the other side.